Hilchos Mechira Perek 13, chapter 13, Perek Gimel. Hamachav Kalim Bekalim. Yesterday we were speaking about the halachas that we know of cheating. So the Rambam says that if a person exchanges one article for another, or a behema bebehema, or let's say an animal for an animal, afilu machat b'shidayim, or a tala b'sus, or let's say even if he exchanges a needle for a necklace or a lamb for a donkey, so it's clearly not a fair trade. The halacha is ein le'han no. Why? Why is there no cheating over here? This person desires the needle more than the necklace, and there's no din of a no by chalipin. Avah pedis b'pedis. Person exchanges produce for produce. Whether the produce is evaluated before the sale, the halacha is yesh lahem ainiyah. There will be halachas of cheating. When a person purchases an article with coins, if a person buys the article with coins without measuring the number, the volume of the weight, for example, he took a handful of coins and said, "Sell me your cow for these." So this is considered an exchange, and it's a good transaction, and the aina must be returned as explained above. Applies as well as someone who purchases fruit without measuring this number, volume, or weight for a seller or two. This transaction is completed, and the unfair gain must be returned. When the homeowner sells his personal belongings, the laws of Allah do not apply. For a man will not sell his personal belonging unless he were offered an exorbitant amount of money. Although a person tells a friend, "We are completing this transaction on condition that you do not hold me responsible for any unfair gain," the laws of a no apply. When do we say this? When the statements are made without being explicit. Let's say, for example, the other party does not know how much money he is giving in favor of his friend. For sure, these halachas, when one tells the other, are completing the transaction on condition that there's no involved. If everyone explicitly mentions the amount of unfair gain, the laws of Eina do not apply, because all conditions that are accepted by both parties are binding in cases of financial law. How so? If the seller tells the purchaser, "I'm selling you this item for 200 zuz. Although I know it's worth only 100 zuz, I'm selling it to you on condition that you do not hold me responsible for the unfair gain." So then the halachas of I know do not apply. The purchaser tells the seller, "I am purchasing this article from you for a money, although I know it's worth 200. I am purchasing it from you on condition that you do not hold me responsible for the unfair gain." The halachas of do not apply. When a person buys and sells in a faithful manner, the halachas of do not apply. The seller tells the purchaser, "I purchased this article for such and such, and I am making this in this amount of profit." So then, the laws of do not apply. When a person buys and sells in a faithful manner and buys many different utensils and garments in one lot, you should not calculate and sell the inferior item in a faithful manner and the superior item according to the value. Instead, you should sell either the entire lot in a faithful manner or the entire lot according to its value. Yishtala alis al mekach skar katu, skar chamor, skar punduk. The seller may include the cost of the porters, the donkey drivers, and its lodgings in the cost of this article. He may not, however, add his own wages as a worker to the costs. He has to say, I'm taking this in this amount as profit, and be specific about the amount. The laws of do not apply with regards to goy. When you sell an entity. If a goy takes unfair advantage of it, is required to return unfair gain according to the laws. The use of chomer Yisrael dealing with a goy should not be more severe than dealing with a fellow yid. Ches, the lachas that we know that not apply with regards to karkois, ravodim, mashtaris, prakteshes, with regards to landed property, servants, notes, and hektish. Even if one sells one of these entities that is worth 1,000 zuz, one zuz, an entity worth one zuz for 100 zuz, the lachas that we know do not apply. It says, Oikona miyada misecha, and when you purchase an entity from the hand of your friend, from the hand indicates the pasuk is referring to an article whose ownership is transferred from one hand to another. There's a karkois, just a one shuf for the karkois, excluding land the property, and avodim and the shuf that are ukshul the karkois. Yes, restoration go from kana alaria ba'an. Also excludes notes since one is not purchasing the note itself. And miskov hagdish. Your friend excludes hagdish. Shmedavan amunim. One sells his own property. When a shtiach makes the slightest error with regards to the value of either movable property or landed property, it's nullified. Same appears to me, halachos in regards to a guardian, to the property of orphans. If he makes some mistakes, then it's chazer. In the name of the Beis Din, it's not considered comparable to the Beis Din because he's merely a yachid. The Beis Din shemach nichsi yisem v'tov ben garkoz ben metaltlin. In tov ben pachas meshtus has a mechilek head in tov meshtus batlan mekach. Beis Din sells either movable property, landed property belonging to orphans, or makes mistakes. If he made a mistake with regard to less than 1/6 of the value of the object, it's considered as if the unfair gain is waived, as if the halach is with regards to the ordinary person. If he made a mistake with regards to 1/6, it's nullified. If the Beis Din did not desire to nullify the transaction, and instead have the unfair gain returned, they may. The legal power of an ordinary person should not be greater than the Beis Din. It appears to me that if a Beis Din sold property or servants belonging to orphans at an unfair price, selling entities worth 100 zuz for 200, then purchaser cannot retract. For the legal power of ordinary individuals should not be greater than that of orphans. If a guardian or orphan sells landed property or servants at an unfair profit, the purchaser cannot retract because of the unfair halachas, as this is with regards to an ordinary individual. When brothers or partners divide movable property, they're considered like purchasers. So therefore, if there's an unfair gain less than 1/6 of the article's value, the transaction is completed. There's no need to return anything. Yes, however, if it's more than 1/6, then transaction is nullified. Transaction is if the involved parties made an agreement to divide the property according to the valuation. Again, if the people involved made an agreement to divide the property according to the valuation of judges, and the judges made a mistake with regards to 6 or more, so then it's the B'lat L'Chalukah. When the Dayanim make an evaluation, reduce or increase the value of an article by 1/6, the transaction is bottle. Livestock, pearls or a sword, it's like other metaltlin yesh, but I know that is a no. there are no entities so much the halachas we know do not apply except with regards to the entity mentioned in the Chacham. It's true provided the person is selling or buying or selling his own property, as we explained. Just as I know do not apply to the purchase of landed property, so too the laws do not apply to the rental of landed property. Even if a person rents a large hall for 1 dinar a year, or a small coop for a dinar a day, the laws of all do not apply. As well, a person hires a worker to work for him, whether with regards to movable property or regards to landed property, so the halachas do not apply. Because he's purchasing it for that time. Avodim, in regards to avodim, there's no test the science. Schar the zerei the karko, schar the zerei the karko, zerati, pozeri aruya ba edim shazara be pachzmat Allah has a suffix mishinom shazara in the karko. So suffix, a person hires a contractor to sow a field. The contractor claims to have sowed it in the proper manner. The minister specified that the contractor sowed fewer seeds than it's supposed to be sown. So then we're unsure whether the halachas will now apply to the seeds or to the halachas do not apply to the land. You don't take it from the nitva. Therefore, first of all, the fund should not be taken away from the defendant, nor is he required to take anything only midrabanan, because of the connection the dispute has to landed property. Designed. Regard to rental or utensil of an animal, there is Hilchos Mechira Perek. For rental is considered to be a sale of a day. If there's a no shtos or being shinis anna masker, whether the advantage of the owner of the person who rents the article. So the halacha is there's a mudas if I feel the achazman merubah has to be returned. Applies even when a lengthy period of time has passed since the transaction. Because nearly shakavli usually appears to me that laws of now apply to regards to contractors. Case that also shkiba love Larry Begali Basar Zuzum. Person agreed to weave a particular garment for 10 zuzum, or to sew a particular cloak for 2 zuzum. I know there is a no. Even the contractor, the owner of the garment, may always retract as a seller. Hilchos Mechira chapter 14. We already explained, if a person buys and sells in a faithful manner, saying, this is the extent of my profit that I'm saying, there's no even if he says, I purchased this article for a seller and I'm selling it for 10, then it's mutter. But the Bezdin is obligated to regulate the prices and appoint officers for this loss. Person can't make as much as he wants. Instead, the business should regulate. Person shouldn't earn only a profit of a sixth. A seller should not profit more than a sixth of his investment. Base. With regards to articles that our lives depend, like wine, oil, and fine flour. When it comes to, let's say, like frankincense and the like, by contrast, the set limit is not established at the Bezdin. The seller may take any measure that he desires. Profit may not be taken twice when selling eggs. The first merchant who sells them may take a profit, and the person who buys them from him a settlement cost. Person is forbidden to do business in Eretz Yisrael with articles that our lives depend. As maybe one person should bring from his produce heap, and another person should bring from his produce heap. They sell cheaply. Places for oil is abundant. It's permitted to do the business for the oil. Hey, ein etzim peres shishmei b'chai nefesh b'eretz Yisrael v'chim b'chol makom shkub Yisrael shalagia midavar zeratzal Yisrael. Produce on which our lives depend should not be stored for the future in Eretz Yisrael in a place that is predominantly inhabited by Eden. It causes tzar to Eden. When the person purchases such produce, when a person stores his own produce, he may store the kav that he possesses. What lets prepare surely shanim out of shvis is permitted to store produce during 3 years, the year before shvis, the year shvis, and the year following shvis. In a year of drought, one should not store even a small measure of carrots because one brings a curse on the marketplace. Whatever causes the prices to rise for stores produce in Eretz Yisrael or in the place primarily inhabited by Eden is likened to the one who lends money and interest. This is produce which our lives dependent on. It's permitted, however, to store spices like cumin and pepper in Eretz Yisrael to transport them from place to place like other herbs. We do not take produce on which our lives depend on, for example, wine, oil, or fine flour from Eretz Yisrael to the diaspora to Syria. Nor may such produce be taken from the domain of one king to the domain of another king in Eretz Yisrael. The inhabitants of the city are permitted to establish fixed prices for any commodities they desire, even meat and bread. They may establish conditions stating that anyone who violates these guidelines will be punished in such fashion. Craftsmen in a specific profession may establish provisions that agree that one may not work on that which is working. Then if a person violates these guidelines, will be punished in such fashion. One does supply in a city where there's there's not a distinguished sage to correct the conduct within the city and approve the ways of the inhabitants. So if there's a chacham, then you can't do that. Unless you do it with the consent of the sage. Whoever causes a friend a loss because of a tanai that was not made with the consent of the chacham is chayav to pay. Just as there's an issue against no applies with regards to the business transaction, speech as well. It's like it's literally Senate, person should not abuse his friend, and you should not fear your friend. I am Hashem. Saying that's the this is refers to verbal abuse. Kid said how about trouble it might have been gained a person is one who has done tshuva. A person should not say, remember the initial deeds. If a person is a descendant of a ger, one should not tell him, remember who your parents are. If a ger comes to Lentera, one should not tell him, should a mouth that ate nevelis and didn't check properly come instead of Torah that was given from Hashem. A person was afflicted by illness and suffering, or he is forced to bury his children, he should not speak to him in this manner, and that Eve addressed him. Your fear of Hashem was for your own security. Can you recall anyone who was innocent who perished? If donkey drivers are seeking grain, one should not tell them, go and so and so. One knows that the person has never sold grain. Regarding a point of knowledge was raised. A question regarding a point of knowledge was raised. One should not ask a person who has never studied the field of knowledge and tell him, how do you answer the question, or what do you think about this matter? Test 12. Whoever causes a conflict with a financial transaction verbally, he abuses, he's over 3 lavin. Number 1, V'ger le'sena. V'ger le'sena zanat dvarim. This says that you should not abuse a ger. This refers to verbal abuse. And do not oppress him. This refers to unfair financial advantage to him. Teaches anyone who verbally abuses a ger transgresses 3 isurim mishum le'sena. Yishas amusing mishum daltena yisashalach mishum v'ger le'sena. And if a person oppresses a convert and takes unfair financial advantage from him, he's ever allowed. Mishum daltena yisashalach mishum le'sena shish as amusing mishum le'sena. It's designed to either beger allowed in his term often by nice moment. Why does a person over the isser against verbal abuse when he takes unfair financial advantage of a ger? And the isser against taking unfair financial advantage if he verbally abuses him, because the theory uses the word I know with regards to both the isurim. Verbally abusing a person is more severe than taking unfair advantage of him financially. This one can be repaid, this one cannot be repaid. The latter only the person's possession, while the former involves the person. But it says in regards to it says, and you shall fear Hashem. This matter is in the muscle of the leave. So called over Shemasali, never be based on the Kechel, called Sigma, Nestvarim, Nana Miyad. Anyone who a person cries out because of verbal abuse gets answer, which never Kiyani Hashem. Hilchos Mechira Perek Tezvov, chapter 15. Aleph, Amechel Chaveda B'mida B'mishkol B'minya V'tal B'chol Shehu Chayzel Eilam. A person sells an item to a person either by measure, by weight, or by number, and makes the slightest mistake, so the guy can ask to redress at any time. She'ena alubadam. She'ena applies only with regards to a object's value. Al b'cheshbon chezer, with regards to cheshbon, he can redress. Ketzah, how so? Machala mea gezem d'niredim tzemea v'echad etisha v'tisha. Nikla mekach ha'machzer z'teres v'filu acher kamashin. Person sold a friend 100 nuts for a dinner, and then it was discovered that he gave him 101.99. So the transaction is binding, and the extra missing nuts must be returned, even after many years have passed. It's discovered that more or less money was given than the amount originally agreed upon. The mistake should be corrected. This applies even if he performed the kinyan attesting to the fact that his friend does not own anything, for the kinyan was performed under the mistaken premises. Geen kolbeet, zo is dat. Kibbel, we gaan hem eigenlijk gewillen kijken hebben de BMO je charme taal te nutzen we mekach zal je hadden bij lekach. Achzeder veel lager kamershonem shazam mekach toiso. Person sells a friend landed property, a servant, an animal, movable property. There's a defect in the property that the purchaser was not aware of. He may return it even though the several years have passed, because there's a mekach tois. Supplies provided did not use the purchased article after he discovered the blemish. If, however, he made use of it after he discovered the blemish, so that has a mochel, he is considered to have forfeited his rights to retract and may not return the article. Would not evaluate the diminished the minion and value caused by the blemish. Even if a person sold a person a utensil worth 10 dinar, when the blemish was discovered that reduced its value by an issur, the purchaser may return the utensil. And the seller may not tell him. Seller may not tell him here's an issur that decreased in value caused by the blemish, because the purchaser could say, I wanted a perfect article. The purchaser desires that this transaction stand seeks to be reimbursed for the chas and value caused by the blemish, option is given to the seller. May tell him either purchase the utensil as for the full price or take your money and depart. Hey, whenever there's a blemish that the people of a city agree is serious enough to warrant the nullification of its transaction, the article should be returned. Whenever the people agree that a fault is not considered to be a blemish, the article should not be returned unless the purchaser explicitly stated that he refused to accept even the slightest blemish. Whenever a person conducts business without making a specific demand, he goes based on the prevailing customs of the community. Whenever a person purchases an article without making a specific statement, it is assumed that it is an article that is perfect without any blemish. Even if the seller says this article is sold to you on the condition that you return as it's blemished, the purchaser may nevertheless return the article unless the purchaser says, unless I'm accepting it. A person, his meichel money that is due to him, he must know how much he's being meichel and make an explicit statement to that effect that applies with regards to halachas of eino. Sign a mechir perlech avedim mano bo mul glim mum sheni kaim leye be esa mul glim shemana benutze bo mul esa and sheni noch nikodem as a mekach tois chayz av bish perish mum shenutze. When a person sells a cow to a friend that states that he has some blemishes that are obvious, some blemishes that are not obvious, and the cow does not possess any of the blemishes that are obvious, but does possess one of the blemishes that are not obvious, the transaction is considered to have been included under mistake. Shar lekech, every sharisi shein ba'ela elam mashnirim shem aman marti kach ein ba'ela shenirim mimeno. As far as that the purchaser will say, since I saw that the cow did not possess any of the apparent blemishes that you mentioned, sell it to myself in the same manner, does not have any blemishes, they are not apparent. In the first woman, so why did the seller mention them? Make me feel good about the purchase. Kids at house. Some part of the seller says this cow is blind, it's lame, it bites, it crashes suddenly. So it's discovered that the cow only bites. So then it's a mekach tois. If the cow possesses all the blemishes the seller mentioned, the transaction is not considered to have been mekach tois. The cow is lame and not blind, and it's discovered that it bites. Even though it's not blind, it's a mekach tois. The seller shows the purchaser a blemish that the cow possesses and tells him it has this blemish and also these three blemishes. Though the cow possesses all or several of the non-obvious blemishes that the seller mentioned, the transaction is not considered to have been under false pretense. If the person sells a maidservant to a friend and says, she has only one hand, she limps, she's blind, she is a maniac, she's epileptic, does not possess any of the blemishes the seller mentioned, but she's epileptic, the transaction is considered to have been conducted under mekach tois. As he says, he says like this: I maintain that if a person sells a chayfetz article to a person for 100 dinar and tells him this article is not worth more than one zuz, and I'm selling it to you on condition that the halachas of another apply to me, the halachas of another do apply. But the purchaser will say, since I saw the seller say it was only worth a zuz, I realized that he was only trying to make me feel good about my purchase. Unless the seller explicitly mentions the amount of unfair gain involved in the purchase or mentions a figure that is close to that, considering which a person could possibly make a mistake. For we know that the purchaser certainly waived this right, so because and it's fitting to rule according to this logic. A person sells a manservant or a maidservant. The purchaser may not return it because it possesses blemishes that do not prevent the woman or man or woman working. And they're called simpain. Shemai is a simpain golik faru. They're called simpain, and if it was evident, the purchaser saw it at the time of the purchase. If it's not evident, for example, some mold, flesh, a scar from the dog bite, or a foul odor coming from the mouth or the nose, he may not return it, for these blemishes do not prevent the servant from working. Any servant is an offer for the purpose of physical intimacy with to perform work. Last Allah, servant has extremely uncomfortable boils or a sickness that weakens his strength, or is an epileptic or insane, it's considered to be a blemish because it prevents him from working. Yes, saras in any condition that's revolting, considered a blemish. Considered a blemish because a person is repelled by them and therefore he will not use the servant for a drink. If it's discovered to be an armed robber, this is considered to be a blemish and destroys the entire worth. For the ruling authorities will seize him and execute him. If he has been conscripted by the ruling authorities, it is considered to be a blemish for which the servant can be returned. The king will seize him to work for him whenever he desires. However, the servant is discovered to be a ganav, all these things, then the purchaser may not return him unless he explicitly states that he refused to accept the servant with any of these qualities. All servants can be assumed to possess these undesirable qualities. I don't unless you said something.